Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Michael. We got a great one for you today. Today we have a guy that put to bed a myth, and that myth is that waterfowl stories are all the same. Today we talk with Hunter Walton. Hunter Walton is part owner of Canvasback Waterfowl. They make full body waders, and he has some amazing duck hunting stories for us today. So I want to thank Hunter, of course, for coming on the podcast. I want to thank you all very much for tuning in. I'm going to throw this here at the beginning, because I usually put it at the end, but make sure you share the podcast with at least one other person today to help us grow and get in touch with more storytellers. Every day, I have more and more people reaching out saying they got a crazy story that they want to tell. So that's it, guys. Well, I'm going to stop right there, and let's go ahead and kick this thing off and let Hunter tell you his stories. All right, Hunter. Welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast, brother. How you doing, man?
I'm doing very good, Michael. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm fired up to get to share some stories and drink a little whiskey and enjoy your company, even though it is over Zoom.
That's all right. That's right. Texas is too big of a state, man. I mean, you're actually the first Texan that I've interviewed since I've lived in Texas, and you're still just as far away as if I'd lived in Colorado. That's the funny thing about this state, man. It's huge. But either way, I'm excited that you're here. And I am excited to share a glass of whiskey with you as you tell us some stories. But why don't let's kick this thing off as we always do. Why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners, bud?
Absolutely. My name's Hunter Walton. I'm the co-founder, co-owner of Canvasback Waterfowl. We're a new waterfowl hunting company that came to market last year. And we specialize in the full body waterfowl hunting wader. So yes, you heard me, full body, toe to chin coverage. It's definitely a game changer. It's definitely a unique product. We're very passionate about waterfowl hunting, and we're equally as passionate about our product. We think it's really cool. But yeah, that's really what led me here. I went to school down in College Station. And then took a job as an attorney for a while and have made the jump into the outdoor industry. A little bit different hours.
That's a jump. That's a jump.
Yeah, huge jump. I'm so blessed and thankful for it, and can't wait to see what the future holds. So we're all in it right now, and we're excited to see where these full body waders take us.
That's cool. It's a cool concept. Let me ask this: how long you been hunting, Hunter?
Oh man, I've been hunting my whole life. My dad and his family's from East Texas, so you get a lot of that Cajun crossover. You get a lot of that piney woods hunting. The deer. If my dad hears this podcast, he's going to be offended. But the deer don't grow big down there. But you definitely learn how to hunt. It is. When you're looking at a thicket of piney woods, all you're trying to find is an ear flicker or a tail flick. And you're like, yep, there's a deer. So it's definitely not for the faint of heart. I spent many hours in a deer blind growing up. Some of my favorite memories, definitely. But when my dad turned me on to duck hunting, that was the catalyst for all of it, really. Once you get that first blind experience and you see those birds, dropping through the trees, committing to the decoys, and, you get your heart racing, man, that's a hard drug to quit.
Yeah, I bet, man. I bet. So Hunter, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm sure you haven't listened to all of my episodes, but I have very limited waterfowl experience. In fact, last year I went for my first time ever, and I didn't even have anyone to go with. I was like, screw it. So in Colorado, you got to reserve these public land spots. So I reserved a spot and I was just like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm just going to go. So I went out twice. First time, didn't see anything, didn't do anything. The water level was low, but it was beautiful and I had a good time. Good enough to come out again. The second time I ended up shooting 2 spoonbills, and I was like, okay, I get this. This is addicting. And it was just me sitting on the edge of a reservoir surrounded with a bunch of sticks. And really, if I was a duck, I would have known that I was there because there was no real cover. But I had a good time, and it's something that I really am excited to kind of explore next season. As this past season was my first time ever duck hunting, man, and it was fun. So I hope you have a couple duck hunting stories for us.
Oh, absolutely. And man, isn't that funny? sometimes I'm hesitant to invite people with me because I do a lot of public land hunting, and I can't guarantee that the birds are going to be exactly where I think they are. And, you never know what it's going to be like until you get out there. But even on those bad hunts where everything goes wrong, someone sinks their waders, it's cold, the birds are landing not where you think they are, somehow people want to come back. I invited a buddy a couple of years ago, and we had a miserable hunt. It started snowing on us. The lake levels had risen. So trying to get out to the spot, we couldn't get to where we wanted to. We're, hopping from log to log, and we busted a couple woodies early on, and there was nothing. And we froze our tail off and then walked back to the truck. And as soon as we jumped back into the truck, he was like, "Hey, so when are we going again?" I was like, "Man, you want to go again?"
You're like, "That's the right answer."
Exactly. Heck yeah. I thought I scared you off, but no, it's a dangerous game. I will say, the waterfowl world, once you get into it, it's hard to quit it. Yeah,
I've heard it called the dark side, so I believe it, man. I believe it.
Man, yeah, it's so addicting. It's one of those experiences that even on the good hunts, there's stuff that you could do better, and it's a never-ending process of learning the land, the bird, how to talk to them, how to set up. I think over the many, many years that I've been hunting since I was, I think my first duck hunt, I was probably 10, and now I'm 32. So over those, 22 years, I think my perspective on duck hunting has changed so much, gone back and forth through all the different strategies. But one thing's for sure, I got to be in the water when the sunrise is coming up. So that's for sure.
Just so I'm thinking about your product and your full body waders, because the one time that I did go and actually did shoot a duck, so the reservoir we're at, the water level is really low, right? So it's nice and flat for a good while, but eventually it drops down, and the water level was just where it started to drop. So I popped these two ducks, and I start walking in, and I'm a tall guy, so I'm 6'4". And I'm walking in, and all of a sudden I realize the ammo that I have on the front of my waders is underwater. Like I'm an inch from the top of my waders, and these duck are still too far away for me to get them. So I'm like, oh, what do I do? So I actually walk back to my decoys. Well, I, sludge back to my decoys, grab a decoy, pull it over, unravel all the cord on it, and start throwing the decoy at the bird while I'm nipples deep in this reservoir.
Yes.
And, like you said, it's snowing. I'm like, man, if I lose this inch that I have between the top of my waders and the water, I'm gonna have a real bad time. Either way, I got one of the birds back. The other one, unfortunately, I couldn't fish out with the duck decoy, but I was sold, and I'm just there alone. Just it's a beautiful thing to see that sunrise over some water.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Well, the next time, here's a pro tip. Bring a fishing reel with a top water lure if you're ever in water over your head.
Yeah,
you can throw that thing out there and start, maybe hook a feather or two and reel her back in.
That's funny, man. So it's a good story that you just brought up, and it's not my story. So I don't know if you've ever watched the show Alone.
Oh, dude, yeah, that's a great show.
Yeah, Biko, the mountain troll that was on one of the seasons there, the guy that wore the overalls. I actually had him on this podcast, and to everyone out there,
way.
I apologize. I lost the audio.
No,
and I feel so bad. And I've been trying to get Biko back, but he's a busy guy, and he had some killer stories. But one of his stories it was actually the first story he told. It was about his dad, and he'd go duck hunting with his dad, and his dad took a bunch of like shark hooks and fashioned them all together and put them on the end of a fishing pole. And so they'd go out on the boat and they'd shoot these ducks, and then he'd take his fishing pole with the shark hooks and cast it and just pull these ducks in.
No way.
Yeah. And so he was telling me this story where he's pulling it in. It's through the reeds and all this stuff, and it got caught, and he's yanking on it, trying to get this. It's literally like 6 different shark hooks, and he just yanks, and it comes loose. But of course, when you're yanking that hard, what happens? That thing shoots straight at Pico's dad. And so Pico's dad throws his hand up and just takes the hook, center mass of the palm, and just it's just hooked in there. And he's looking at his hand, and he looks at little baby Biko. Biko's probably, probably 14 at the time. Looks at his hand and goes, "Well, son, strip down. You're going to get that duck." so with just a massive shark hook in his hand, He has
Jeez.
he tells his son, and Biko does it. He strips down to his underpants and swims out and catches or grabs the duck that his dad shot and came back. And then they went to the hospital where they got the hook removed like surgically. It's a crazy story. I'm not doing it justice. So I'm going to have to tell Biko that I told this story and I need him to tell it correctly. Cause you just reminded me of that. Either way, I don't like telling other people's stories, but again, I apologize to the listeners, and even more so, I apologize to Biko for losing that audio. He had some crazy stories, including some from when he was on alone. Some stuff that they definitely didn't show on the show. So
I can't even imagine what that experience would be like. But you being from New Braunfels, it reminds me that there's a great waterfowl hunting spot just south of you called Choke Canyon. I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
I have,
but it is a fantastic waterfowl refuge. Man, it's absolutely killer. And
we're going to have to talk about that when the season comes around, Hunter, because I'm going to need all the help I can get.
No, let me tell you, I got a great story from Choke Canyon. So I actually, I went to school in College Station, Texas A&M, and a couple of my roommates were from Bernie. And so we drove out to Bernie one weekend and we wanted to go hunting. And so we decided to go out to Choke Canyon, and we had hunted it in the past, but man, it's a vast, vast reservoir. And it's one of those places where you pull up to the spot and you got to, sign in because it's a WMA. But it also has a big sign over the top of the sign-in booth that says, "Don't bring your dog." And it's because there's gators all in this reservoir, and it doesn't get cold enough to make them go dormant. So even in the middle of November, December, there's still gators. You'll see gator eyes in your decoys while you're setting up. It's a little eerie, definitely eerie.
I don't know if that's my speed, Hunter, but keep going.
No, so we go out to hunt Choke Canyon, and two of my buddies are also waterfowlers. I actually had a boat in college, 18-foot John boat with 25 horsepower, little old Evinrude on the back, and it allowed us to hunt the Brazos River, hunt Somerville. It was awesome. So I definitely had some good duck hunting buddies, but we were taking kind of one of our other friends that hadn't really been waterfowl hunting and was really new to the outdoors. And so, he sees this sign as we pull up that says, "Don't bring your dog, gators in the area," all this stuff. And he's like, "Dude, are we really about to go out there in this black water with alligators?" And like, wait, are we serious? And like, yeah, we're fine. We're fine. So, we drive my truck out there, and back then I was driving a 1990 Toyota Land Cruiser. And man, I loved that vehicle. We had pitted it out, ripped out the floorboards, had sprayed rhino lining in the bottom, drilled holes in the base floor so that you could just literally take a hose and spray her off when you get all that mud in your truck and everything. So it was a beast. And she went everywhere. We call her the bullfrog. But that's an aside. So we're out there in Choke Canyon, and we're setting up our decoys. We've got this new buddy who's very new to the outdoors, and all these coyotes start howling. It's probably 4 a.m. and just start picking up, and his eyes are as wide as saucers. And he's like, "Holy crap, dude! Like, I mean, do I need to go get my gun? Like what's going on? Are we about to get swarmed or something?" We're like, "Hey,
man, I'll be honest, Hunter. I'm a little worried that your buddy was going to be like, "Are those gators?"
Yeah.
Having no idea what's going on. But
yes, no. He's like, "Do I need to go get my gun? Like, what's happening?" Like, hey, calm down. I'm not going to name him. I almost threw out his name. I'm not going to throw him under the bus yet. But so we go through this hunt, and it's kind of on this flat spot. It's a sandy beach, and there's two old fence lines that have run out, and it's a flooded compartment. And so there's a couple of old tree stumps that the trees are dead, but there's enough cover to walk out this kind of old fence line, and you sit out at the end of this fence line, and there's water all around you and a couple of dead trees. So there's enough kind of cover to where you can hide yourself behind the tree for a couple of guys, throw out a handful of decoys, and there's birds moving. I mean,
Yeah.
Even as we're setting up the decoys at 4 a.m., we can hear wings above, and we hear them talking across the lake, and we're getting fired up. And so we're all hunkered up, we're camoed up. This was during the Duck Dynasty days, so we think we're cool, and we got our face paint on and everything, and
everybody's got
we're
their
ready
beards.
to go. Oh yeah, we're ready to go. We are leaning against the trees. We're hearing the birds. We're talking to them and everything, and seeing them spin around. And just at daylight, there's this old timer that, I have no idea where he came from. I don't see his truck. I don't see a boat or anything, but he takes the other kind of fork of this fence line that's flooded, and he walks out there, and there's just one single tree, and he's got 6 decoys. He's got an over under that looks to be a 20 gauge. And he goes up and leans against this tree and throws out 6 decoys. And we're out there with our big spread, 3 guys. We're calling. We're getting the birds in. We're having a halfway decent hunt. We're feeling good about ourselves. And this old timer, I swear. So the limit in Texas is pretty much the same everywhere. It's 6 birds, and we hear 6 total shots the whole time. And so we're cranking off rounds. We're chasing birds. We're being college
Just having
kids,
a good time. Yeah,
having a great time. And this old timer starts walking back, about an hour after shooting light. And we're like, oh man, like, why is he walking back? There wasn't that many birds over his spot. I only heard a few shots, and he has a full stringer of birds walking out. And he just kind of in passing just says, boys, enjoy the rest of your hunt. And we're like, holy crap. This dude took 6 shots with an over under 20 gauge out in public land, and he was efficient. He's done in an hour, and we're out here, dicking around trying to, call birds into our big massive spread, and he's in and out like that. And so I was like, okay, life goals. That's who I want to be. That guy right there. And he just like a mythical creature kind of just disappeared into the woods. Never heard an engine start up or anything. I have no idea how he got there, but man, that was quite a hunt.
That's awesome, man. Somebody else told me a story about like an old timer showing up that was only shooting coots, and it's funny, those old timers, man. So that's an awesome story, and it's cool that that's somewhere near me. Although I don't know if I can get over the gators. We'll have to see if I have the courage for that, man.
Oh yeah.
Moving from Colorado, we got no gators in Colorado. Well, maybe like a couple in random lakes that are there for like a year before they freeze and pass. So
yeah, it's like, how did they get there?
Yeah, right.
No,
somebody had them as a pet and let them go or something. Who knows?
Yeah, I will say, and I'm not trying to blow anyone's cover. Any waterfowlers in the area are gonna get mad at me, but Choke Canyon is a great spot for a public land hunter. There's a ton of options. It's huge. You get a lot of different type of hunting. You can do open water. You can kind of do the like we did some dead oak hunting. There's some even more dense kind of flooded timber, floodplains area when it gets real wet down there, and it's a really good time. It's a really unique place to hunt ducks too. It's not what you imagine when you're going out to shoot some birds or shoot some waterfowl, for sure. So that's a place you got to put on your list that you need to hit, for sure.
Yeah, man. I just got to remember, like, waterfowl season's so far away, but we're going to stay in touch, Hunter. And
yes, sir.
We're going to talk about this in like 8 months when it's actually relevant. But for now, let's get back to it, man. I know you said you had a couple stories in line for us, and I'm sure that old timer in Choke Canyon wasn't one of them. So why don't you set the stage for the stories that you had prepared for us today, man?
Man, so my father is in agriculture. He's a farm broker, so he's in ag real estate, and so that sets us up real nicely to have some great hunting properties all throughout the Southeast. And, his region is national. So we got a lot of really cool places to choose from. And we used to do this trip where it'd be about 7 to 10 days in the middle of duck season. We'd go drive out to West Memphis, Arkansas. And we have some row crop fields, some flooded rice fields. And we start out there, and then you just get on the phone and you start calling people. And you basically turn into a nomad for 7 days, just, shacking up with random different people. They're like, hey, the birds are here. You guys got to come over here. And it's a really cool culture. The Arkansas waterfowl culture is amazing. A lot of farmers, especially during hunting season, they start putting water on their crops, and then, they're all about, chasing birds all season long. And so, people are sharing information. You're driving back and forth across the state, but I'll never forget, there's another kind of legendary, mythical figure in our lives in the waterfowl world. His name's Terry McFarland, and he's an old timer from Memphis, but he grew up in Arkansas, and he's the type of guy that's going to be in his barber jacket with his tweed hat and a walking pole out there, and just like, all right, boys, make sure your nose is against that timber. I want to see scrapes on your nose before the end of this hunt, kind of guy, Yeah. And, if birds flare, he's like, who's looking? Who flinched? He's a really cool guy who just, the hours he's spent in the timber, I can't even imagine. And he knows everybody across the whole state of Arkansas. So he's a really fun guy to do a trip like that with. But so we call him Mr. Mac. So when Mr. Mac gets excited about birds, it's on. And so, we're driving out there. We're set up in West Memphis. We're about an hour away from this farm out in Terrell, Arkansas. And we get a phone call from Mr. Mac, and he goes, you boys here or what? And we're like, well, we're driving out there. And he's like, well, you guys got to get here. You need to be here now. The birds are here. And then about halfway through that sentence, he just paused and goes, oh my God. Oh my God, boys, you better show up in your waders. We're about to lay a hurting on them. And so we have no idea what we're walking into. We just hear, oh my God, at the end of the call, and he clicks, and he's apparently, somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. And so we're like, good gosh. Okay. So we're driving out there, and we're like, okay, get in your waders. So we got 4 guys in the truck. We're driving, we're passing waders through the windows. We're wadering up as we're getting out there. We're ready to go. And he, we're calling him, hey, Mr. Mac, we're here. And he drives up in his side by side. He's like, boys, you better get in. And as we pull up, the skies are dark with thousands of birds just circling, flying everywhere, tornadoing down. It is insane.
That's
we
on
get
my
out
bucket
there.
list, man, to see one of those bird tornadoes. Okay, so I know granted, you got to excuse me. I am a novice waterfowl hunter. I know I've heard goose tornadoes. Do duck tornado as well?
No, they don't. Okay. This was a very, very rare experience. I've never seen birds act this way. And kind of what happened was this field, we were right on the edge of a freeze, and all the other fields around us had frozen up. But this field was flooded deeper than the other fields. So it still had open water. And these birds, it's a flooded rice field. And so these birds are just swarming this open water and food source. It was ridiculous. It was about, man, I'm getting old now. That was about 10 years ago while I was still in college, which hurts to admit that. But, I had old footage of it on some crappy old iPhone that just doesn't do it justice. It was ridiculous. So we haul tail out to the pip line. We jump in, we lock in, and we have, about an hour left till shooting time. So we were late to the show, but we somehow, we got 6 guys in this pip line. We're all crammed in there, and we limit out 6-man limit, hell of a hunt. And so then we plan, okay, hey, tomorrow We're going to be there. We're planning on an all day hunt. We've got, 10 other guys that are coming. We're just going to hammer this field. And so we have this great hunt, and then we show up in the morning, and unfortunately the whole field has frozen over.
Oh,
We're like, oh no. And so we're in the pit blind, and it's before shooting line, and we've got 6 or 7 dudes out there just busting ice, trying to keep the hole open. And so we're out there chomping ice, and one guy falls. He trips on a corn stalk or whatever it is, and then the next guy falls, and he's wet. And then by the end of the hunt, everybody is freezing cold, just shivering because they're soaking wet and ice is forming everywhere. And all our gloves are soaking wet because you kind of did the fall and you put your hand down and your hand got wet.
Yeah.
And so we get back to the pit blind, and it's a little slower that day. The birds aren't quite swarming like they were the night before. And so we're all, we got our gloves out on the pit blind, and it kind of starts wearing on in the day. And we're like, all right, I'm going to put my gloves back on. And all of our gloves are frozen to the metal pit blind. So we're like, well, I guess our hands are just going to be freezing cold today. That's what's in it for us. And so, we weren't planning on being out there all day, but, you kind of get out in the blind and the birds are working, and, you don't want to ever leave, and no one else has anything better to do. So we end up just sitting there all day long from sun up to sundown, trying to scratch out our 10-man limit. And man, I mean, talk about the conversations that we had, just the jokes, every bird that came in, sending someone out to go grab it. It was too cold to have the dog out there that day, and someone inevitably, falls or busts some ice or anything like that. And it was just a heck of a hunt. But the only food source we had was this 1-pound bag of trail mix. And so we're
for 10 guys.
For 10 guys, and we're passing it up and down the pit blind, where everyone's eating it, and they kind of get stuck in this one spot, of course, this one buddy, and he's hoarding it for a bit, and as it starts passing down the row, one of the older guys goes, "Where the hell are the M&Ms?" And we kind of look down.
Oh man!
And this one buddy is just sitting there picking out all the M&Ms, all the good stuff. So all that's left are peanuts and raisins, the part that no one wants. And so we basically finished the day just eating peanuts and raisins, man. I mean, that was the hunt, and there's just some amazing memories. I'll never forget being on the other end of that phone call, just hearing Mr. Matt go, "Oh my God, you boys better get here."
That's amazing, man. Yeah, we all have those buddies that are just like giant man-childs, right?
Yeah.
I have a buddy that I went elk hunting with, and I'm like, bring food for yourself for the mountain, like stuff to keep you sustained as we're hiking 13 miles, going up and down thousands of feet of elevation. Bring yourself something to sustain. He brought a box of candy bars, like full-size candy bars, and that is it. And I'm like, you, sir, are a child. Like, that's all there is to this. If you think that's what's going to help you survive. He ended up hurting himself the first day and only going hunting for one day. So he just sat at camp and eating candy bars. So not a bad trip for him, but we all have that friend that is just sort of a giant man-child. So, man, that's an epic trip, Hunter. Go ahead.
Oh, man, that was, I mean, there's so many different hunts that are just scattered across those trips in so many different situations that I look back on it. I'm married now. I got 2 beautiful little girls. Time is short. It's really hard to put together a trip like that. And, I look back on that, imagining that was going to, be what we did every year for the rest of my life. And, those trips have shrunken down to 2-day trips or 3-day trips and stuff like that. And they're a lot more planned. But man, there's something about just showing up and being like, we're just going to go where the birds are and kind of being nomads. And, you meet new people, you leave $100 bill at someone's house. It's just, it's a really cool experience.
Yeah, for sure, man. And those days are not gone, Hunter. You're just taking a quick pause until you can bring your little girls with you, man.
Absolutely.
So I think our kids are roughly the same age. I have a 4-year-old boy and a 1-year-old girl. How old are your girls?
Nice. 3-year-olds and almost 2.
Okay. So yeah, like right there in the same age range, man. And
yeah.
It's hard to get away for too long, but man, I can't wait till those little squirts are just like old enough to come along and cheer you on. I've taken my little guy when he was 3. I just threw him in a backpack and went 3D archery shooting. And I've never had a bigger fan in my life. And I never shot so well because he was just like, Daddy, you're the best. So like we just got to give it a little bit of time, and then we'll have those little munchkins right there with us chasing those goose tornadoes, buddy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Which, I don't know if I mentioned it. I was asking questions about that, but that's on my bucket list of hunting. Like I don't have too many bucket list hunting things. Seeing a goose tornado is absolutely one of them. I've been goose hunting before, didn't really do much as far as like actually putting any goose down or geese down. But there were geese everywhere, and I could see how that could be overwhelming and just like this surreal experience. We're talking bucket list. I don't know if you ever hunted caribou, but like I want to hunt caribou, and then they have like a tendon or like a little fatty thing behind their eyeball that apparently tastes like bread. There's another thing on my bucket list. I just got to throw that on.
Heck yeah. No, I definitely want to expand my big game experience for sure. Growing up in Texas, whitetail is king out here, man. Sure. Everybody's about, shooting deer, ranches set up specifically for deer hunting, high fence ranches, low fence ranches, protein pellets, corn, trail cams, the whole 9 yards, man. I mean, that eats up a lot of the Texas hunters. So I did a lot of that growing up. And then obviously your feral pig. We have some of those kind of exotic ranches around as well that I've been fortunate enough to get the invite to. But I've never done, I think a bucket list for me would be an elk hunt up in the mountains. And I don't care if it's in Wyoming, Montana, Colorado, anywhere, but do it on horseback, do that horseback.
That's pretty cool.
Elk hunt would be awesome. I used to ride when I was growing up and did a little bit of the 4-H and the rodeo and the showing and all that stuff. So I love horses, and being able to cross those things together and be on the mountainside glassing elk on the back of a horse and going and chasing them. I think that would be just absolutely epic.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're painting a pretty beautiful picture. I've been elk hunting a bunch of times. Well, excuse me. I've been elk hiking a bunch of times. I'm not a very good elk hunter. And it is amazing. And if you're listening, go do it. There's nothing like it. I've done whitetail hunting in Texas. I've done hog hunting. I've done, turkey. There's nothing like elk hunting.
It's just such a majestic creature.
Oh yeah. And then just like, if you ever get there in September, I switched to archery hunting because first off, I didn't want to hunt in November because it's cold as shit. And then secondly, I wanted to experience a bugle fest, and I got one of those once, and I was like, holy shit. Like, this is it. This is my, this is my personality now. Right. Like that's where I'm at. Like, this is how I'm going to like move forward in life. So if
my identity has changed. Yeah,
exactly. Right. Yeah. Screw video games. I'm moving over to hunting. That's basically what happened to me. So,
that's
all right.
awesome.
We're getting off subject here, Hunter. Let's go back.
It's all good.
Yeah.
All good.
Enough of that bucket list. Let's not talk about future hunting stories. Let's talk about some that you have now. So, what other stories you got for us, bud?
Man, so there's an old duck club out in Arkansas that I was fortunate enough to hunt at. And, this kind of crosses over between my bucket list and the things that I've actually already, been able to do. Yeah. It's called Lost Island, and it's just south of Stuttgart, Arkansas, which is, widely heralded as, the duck hunting Mecca, the capital, waterfowlers nation out there. Okay. But this place is owned by an older gentleman, and it's been in the family for decades. And it's managed very, very well. But it's one of those things that they have 500 acres of flooded timber. And then on 3 sides of those 500 acres are flooded rice fields. and on the fourth side is a reservoir. So you have spots for the birds to rest, you have spots for the birds to eat, and they're just flying back and forth over the treetops all day long.
Yeah.
And this place is one of those places where if you get the invite and you get, a slot there, you never give it up, because it's a 10-year wait list just to get a slot. They never hunt more than 2 groups in that place a day. So it's really protected, managed very, very well. But what's one of the really cool parts about the hunt is you drive these levees on the outside to get to the place where you want to, and then you cross over the levee, and on the inside of the flooded timber, they use old P-rows to kind of row yourself out to the spot. And it just feels like you're in a step back in time. You're standing up, pushing like a pole, or you're paddling out to your spot. You get to the hole.
What is that? Sorry, I got to ask Hunter. Just again, I'm new to all this shit, right? So about P-rows. What is the P-rows?
So a P-row is like an old narrow canoe.
Okay.
Originally they're wooden. It's kind of how the Cajuns would navigate all those marshways in Louisiana.
Gotcha.
It's a real lightweight, kind of cross between a kayak and a canoe. And so it is, holds 2 or 3 people max. And so, a lot of people get around by having a pole to kind of pull yourself around. If the water's deeper, you paddle out there. But so it's a really cool experience. No motors or anything. You feel like you got some sweat equity already into the hunt, because you're working to get out to the spot, and, working through all these, backwoods out to the hole. And so already you've kind of been transported to 50 years ago. And so, we get out to the spot, and I've had so many great hunts out of this place. But one of the very first hunts we had, it doesn't happen all the time. It's pretty rare. I've only had it happen once after this first experience. But you get out to the hole, and it's flooded timber style hunting. So you're about knee deep in water, and there's oak trees and other hardwoods that are all around you. And you got a hook that you sling your backpack and your gun over, and you're just hiding behind a tree as the sun comes out. And you find these openings in these flooded timber bottoms, and you wait for the birds to kind of fall in. And so it's a totally different experience than open water hunting or pit blind hunting or anything like that. The birds are up close and personal. And if they're coming into your decoys, they are pot committed. They're feet down, they're slowing themselves down, they're just drifting right in front of your face. So it's a really cool way to hunt birds. There's nothing else like it. It's pretty hard.
Let me ask you this. Like, I'm trying to picture this in my mind, and then I think about you shooting these birds. Does that like really mess up the meat pretty good? Because it sounds to me like you're getting a money shot on these birds, like breasts wide open and just like coming in right in at you. Or is the meat okay when you're hunting these birds as well?
The meat's definitely totally okay. It's not necessarily a closer shot. It's an easier and slower shot, if that makes sense. And instead of them coming, sliding past your decoys or flying over your head or anything like that, if you get them to commit and they're coming in feet down, man, like you can just slowly put the bead on them and drop a few as they're getting in the hole.
No, but that actually helps a lot with my visual. So cool. Mm-hmm. All right, continue, man. Sorry.
Yeah. So this is one of my first flooded timber hunts that I've ever been on. And the guide that we're with, he's like, "Oh, boys, they're doing it today. They're doing it." And what he meant by that is before sun has even, it's dark outside. All you're hearing is wings. You're hearing wings and little splashes all around you. And as it's getting lighter, we've thrown out our decoys and we're standing next to trees. I'm literally having mallard hens that are running into my knees. They are just filling up this hole. It's insane. And all you're hearing is gah, 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 feeder calls, birds talking to each other. It's Grand Central Station in the middle of this hole, and your heart is just beating out of your chest. It's crazy. And so all these birds are just piling in, before the sunlight even comes, before shooting time. And the guide leans over. We're trying to be super quiet, be really still, let him keep filtering in. He's like, pass this along. Hey, start at the top and just work your way down. And what he means by that is that shooting light, all the birds are going to get up, and it takes them a while to get off the water. And so you start at the top, the birds that are, already getting out of the hole, and you just work your way down with your shooting. And man, it was unbelievable. We probably had 150 birds packed into a 20-yard little opening. And as they lit at first light, man, the wings, just the sound, everyone's cracking off shots. The dogs are racing out to go get the birds. I mean, it was unbelievable, just incredible. And you're sitting there just picking out greenheads as they're flying out of the hole. I mean, that was just, it was, you can't top that.
Ah, man, that's so cool. I've heard a lot of stories on this podcast, and I've gotten goosebumps plenty of times, but it's not every time that I'm like, holy shit. Like, I don't really understand what you're saying because I've never been there, right? I'm new to waterfowl hunting. I want to experience it. But like the way you're explaining it, I just can't even imagine. Yeah, that's super cool, Hunter. God,
yes. I mean, those are very few and very far between. But I mean, that's one of those feelings. They talk about buck fever, or if you're spring turkey hunting, if you're a bow hunter, your heart starts beating out of your chest. Yeah. Well, we're sitting there for 20 minutes before shooting light, and my heart is just pounding, just praying like, oh Lord, no one spook these birds, no one get them out early so that we have a shot at them when the first light comes. You're so locked in. It's they call it. I can't even tell you.
Yeah, I was so jacked up when I had 2 birds down at the end of my shotgun. You're telling me hundreds in like probably half the distance that I had those 2 birds. Like,
it's wild.
Yes, sir. Sign me up, Hunter. Sign me up.
It is wild. Cool. Oh yeah.
Awesome, man. God. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Continue. I'm just thinking about these birds. What other stories you got? You
sure.
Got me at a loss for words.
Sure. I'll actually tell you a story about a hunt that I had this season that was really, really cool. And just it's kind of burned into my memory. I still think about it, even though it's 3 months ago. But it was actually the last day of the season here in Texas. And I had a really good friend. His name's Hunter Marcel. He invited me out to this place. And we're sitting on this kind of 40-acre lake that's right next to a seasonal creek. And in Texas this year, we got a lot of rain towards the end of the season. So the creek had kind of flooded into the lake. It's a lot of shallow water, a lot of really good habitat, fresh water for the birds, which is what you're looking for. And we knew at the end of the season, especially in Texas, it's always hard to get yourself to go because you're like, man, am I just setting myself up for disappointment? But it's the last hunt of the season. You're like, I've got to do it. I got to get out there. I got to see one more sunrise until I got to wait for 6 months. So, we knew that the mallards had gone. They had come and gone. They had left us, and the teal were long gone. They'd blown out of the area for a while ago. And so I don't know what we're going to see. I don't even know if there's any birds left out here, but let's go give it a shot. And so, we show up to the place, we head out to the lake, we jump into a canoe, and we kind of set up. It's a bigger body of water. And so sometimes when you're hunting bigger bodies of water, and you haven't had the opportunity of scouting for a couple of days, you don't know exactly where the birds are. And so, birds can land on the other end of the lake, and you're like, man, I did the hard part of knowing where they were going to be, but I wasn't set up in the right spot. And so we kind of set up our decoys in multiple areas so that we could, if we needed to change course mid-hunt, we could, do that really quick. And we tried to kind of block them off at different areas. And maybe if I kind of put a hook out here, catch the birds that are riding this wind and all this stuff. So we had our full strategy laid out, and it turned out to be probably one of the most beautiful hunts that I've ever had. And we're sitting there having a pair or a single come in about every 5 to 10 minutes after sunlight. And they're working our decoys, doing exactly what we want them to, and just, one at a time, picking off birds. And it's just kind of that slow and steady pace that just keeps you engaged the entire time. The birds, for whatever reason, were responding to our calls, so it made me feel like a championship caller. I was like, man, I'm the greatest caller in the world, kind of thing. You could see birds, flying over our heads, hit them with that comeback call, put on the brakes, walk them all the way into the decoys, and have a great shot on them. It was just kind of the picturesque, perfect ender for a season. But what really made it a core memory, I'll say, is the last two birds of the season.
Kids. You do have kids.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a Pixar movie right there. But go ahead.
No, the last two birds of the season, we're down to 10. We got 10 birds. We need 2 more. And, we're talking about, okay, let's pick out a couple of drakes. Let's end the season on some drakes. And a pair of gadwall drakes starts drifting into our decoys. And later on in the hunt, the wind had started picking up, and we're having trouble because the birds are getting blown past our decoy set up to some deeper water. And so these two come gliding in, but they glide right past our decoys and are going about, probably 70 yards away from us. And so we both jump on our calls and try to get them up, and bap, 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 bap. And so we get them off the water, but they're not sure yet. They're still undecided. So they start flying toward the north end of this lake. And we start seeing them kind of cup up, start breaking down. We're like, oh man, they're gonna land back over in that deep water over there. So we hit them with the calls again. Bap, 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 bap. And we get them again. This time they swing around. They're headed straight for our decoys. We're like, yes, we got them. It's long enough away to where we're able to say, okay, you take left, I take right. We'll call the shot. We're preparing for them as they're coming to the decoys. And right at the last second, these two Drake Gadwall just put on some Top Gun maneuvers. And one breaks straight up in the air. The other one breaks left. And, it's pure chaos. We're swinging our guns. And bam, and they just drop dead in the water. And, we're high-fiving, going, heck yeah, fired up. And it was the perfect way to end a season right there. It was pretty cool.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I hope everyone else had the Top Gun theme going in their head as you were telling that story. At the end, man. I think I'm going to end this episode. I'm going to somehow buy the rights to that song and hit, yes. Oh, that's awesome. What an epic end of the season, Hunter, man. That's cool.
Yeah. It felt like the opening scene of Top Gun where they're like, there's one bogey out there. Oh no, there's 2, there's 3. Where'd they go? Flying right past you. I mean, it was awesome.
That's amazing. Oh man, let's. I'm gonna ask you a question here. I know you're a waterfowl guy. You've got probably better waterfowl stories than anyone I've ever met. But do you have any non-waterfowl stories you want to share with us today? Anything with turkey, deer, you name it. Maybe just a friend who's an idiot and fell asleep and crapped himself. Like, who knows what it is? But if you have something outside of waterfowl, Hunter, I'm putting you to the test here.
Yeah. So we used to have this property, and this is a pig hunting story. I have some some deer hunting stories and stuff, but growing up, I've never done the archery thing, and so I've always been a rifle hunter, and we've always been blind hunters, and don't have a ton of like spot and stock stories or anything that's super insane, other than kind of my first buck story or anything like that. But that's like everyone else's. But I do have a couple of good pig stories.
Okay. Real quick before you go on, you sparked something funny. So as I've moved to Texas, I've started talking to hunters as I meet them. Like, hey man, do you got any good stories? And they're like, no man, I sit in a box and I shoot things.
Yeah.
which is funny. I mean, they do have good hunting stories, but their stories all are their friends being idiots. Not so much like this epic, epic waterfowl story or this crazy elk story or whatever.
Yeah.
Texas, it's just good old boys being good old boys, as it turns out.
Yeah, dang straight. I mean, we love that. I'm not downplaying that by any means.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to beat an afternoon sitting in a deer blind with the quiet and the birds chirping, and
it's pretty magical,
watching some deer come out and seeing, just being out there and watching the sunset. I mean, that's hard to beat. That's a great pastime for sure. But
for sure,
I think that might be why I loved waterfowl hunting so much, is how active you are. It really requires a lot of learning, a lot of effort, a lot of trial and error, a lot of failure, but it's definitely more of an active sport where you can have that camaraderie, multiple guys out there talking, cutting up, having a good time. And then when the birds are working, getting real quiet. But no, so I do have an old pig hunting story that we had a buddy that had some land up that actually was on both sides of the border of Texas and Oklahoma. So you had the Red River bottom that ran right through his property, and then some spots in Oklahoma, spots in Texas. And man, they are just tore up with pigs everywhere.
Yeah.
And so, we were actually, I think I was a freshman in college, or may have been even in high school. But I still had my old Bullfrog Land Cruiser. And so we saddled up with all the boys, and we're like, all right, guys, we're going to go spotlight some pigs tonight. And so, we go out to this ridge, and his property, the way it's set up is there's a ridge that's probably 50 feet tall that goes into kind of the Red River bottoms. It's real sandy, and you can actually lay up there. It's which we did many, many times. You lay on this ridge, and you can see under the moonlight, you can see the pigs working up and down that Red River bottom in that sandy red dirt. And so you just sit up there with your buddies, and you're taking pot shots at pigs, 300, 350 yards away. It's kind of a fun evening event for sure, especially for someone who's a gun enthusiast.
Yeah, I bet.
So yeah, so we're out there kind of doing that whole thing, and we kind of get the good idea of like, hey, let's go take a ride around the property. So we jump in, and as we're riding out to this field, we see a couple of pigs running over this ridge, and we're like, hey, let's, I hear them over there. It sounds like there's a bunch of them. There's way more than that. And so, all right, for all your people who, we are responsible. We know how to handle firearms. We're not doing anything too crazy, but so we load up in the car. We're driving out there. Disclaimer.
I love disclaimers on stories.
Yeah. I've grown up since then, but so we've got everyone strapped down, ready to go, and we stir up this probably 30, 40 group of pigs. And the way it's set up is there's kind of another hillside over here, and there's an open pasture out to our right, and we're coming up on the left side with my truck. And they just start taking off running. And it's a full moon. We can see everything that we're doing. And all my buddies in the truck are like, let's go, let's go, let's go. And so I just hammer down, and we are flying neck and neck with this group of pigs. And I got two guys hanging out the side of my truck, just popping pigs as they're running. And I kind of do one of these maneuvers where you kind of feel like the Dukes of Hazzard or something like that, where I kind of outrun the pigs. I know where they're going. We all know where they're going. I outrun the pigs, and I pivot the vehicle, slide around. We both pop out of the truck, and as they're kind of running right at us, just unload on them. And we did our conservation best on limiting that wild pig problem here in Texas. We'll say that.
It is a problem. It is a problem. How many did you put down?
Oh man, probably
ballpark
15 to 20 of them. Just in that whole, 30 seconds foray of just, mayhem, sheer mayhem. It was wild.
That's awesome. Hunter, you forgot one important part of the story. Is like afterwards when you said yeehaw. I didn't hear yeehaw. That fucking story with the Dukes of Hazzard pivot in front of them. Yeah.
Definitely a yeehaw moment for sure. Definitely. And I wonder why I had problems with my, Land Cruiser as I got older,
Right. Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And for those who don't know, pigs are a huge problem. I've hunted them up north. I didn't have a very successful hunt, but as a group, we ended up killing about 20. I didn't even see one, but I've never seen earth literally just flipped upside down. It's like they took 2 feet of earth and just flipped everything upside down.
It's a huge problem. Yeah. It's become a really big problem in Texas, especially for our cattle ranchers and obviously for our farmers. And, just the sheer quantity of them is mind boggling. And the rate that they drop litters and that they reproduce. I mean, we can't keep up with them realistically. There's not really a good solution for the pigs here in Texas. And I know that they're making their way all across the country. It is definitely a problem. Because they've uprooted the entire pasture, just destroy row crop fields. They compete and run off deer and anything else that's.
Yeah, I recently met he's an insurance adjuster, boring, right? But he's an ag insurance adjuster. And so the majority of his job is going to these farms and taking a look at stuff that pigs have ripped up. Like he's an insurance adjuster for Texas. And that's his job is basically going out and paying off these farmers or paying out the farmers on their insurance policies because hogs are just destroying everything. It's crazy. And you're right. Yeah. I think they can give birth 3 times a year with 6 to 8 pigs per litter.
Crazy.
It's crazy.
And they are hardy, man.
Yeah.
They are tough. They are really tough.
Yep. They're even in the suburbs.
Quite a creature.
They're everywhere, man. They're everywhere. But we're getting off subject, Hunter. We do that.
That's right.
Podcast. But that's all right, man.
That's right.
Hunter, you've given us some great stories. I know I asked for an hour of your time, and we're a little bit over that, I think. So
oh wow, there you go.
I know it's quick. Do you have any other stories that you want to share with us? Because I'm not going to stop you. But if you're done, then we're at a good point, I think.
No, I'll tell one more story, and it's kind of the impetus of why we started Canvasback Waterfowl Company with the full body waders. We were hunting at the end of the season, and we're out at this WMA called Big Lake Bottom. And in the part that we are, it's no motors allowed. So you got to walk all the way out to your spot. Again, it's the end of the season. It's about 10 degrees outside. Everything's freezing up again. And so we put in the effort. We put in the time. We scattered. We thought we knew where the birds were going to be. And so we're walking out to our spot. And me and my co-founder are hunting together this day. And my brother and one of my other really good buddies. And so we walk probably 2.5 miles out into these woods to get to our location, busting brush, busting ice all the way out there. And we set up, we're there. First light comes, a group of woodies come through, slide through the hole. We knock one down, and Chad, my co-founder, and one of my dear friends, he runs out to the hole, grabs the wood duck, and there's another group of teal that's kind of coming in. And so we're like, get back, yelling to get out of the hole because we got birds working. And so he's doing his best to move quickly. And he catches an underwater sunken log and does a perfect 10 Olympic nosedive right into the water. I mean, form was impeccable. It was incredible. Yeah. And so he goes fully submerged, water 100% in his waders, all the way down to his boots. He's sloshing around. He's mad. He's freezing cold. He's miserable. And, about an hour into the hunt, he says, guys, I got to call it. I'm going to get hypothermia if I sit out here much longer. And so he has to do the long walk back to the truck all by himself. And on that hunt, driving back from it after we finished up, the wheels just started turning. And it was like, man, we've had so many hunts, where someone has a hunt ender or something happens to where water is all the way down to the boots of your waders. Like there has to be a better design that eliminates that problem. And so really that's kind of where the full body wader idea just kind of sprung from, was us kicking around ideas in a truck ride back from a spoiled hunt. And so Chad and I actually worked at the same job at the time. And so we would run back and forth between our offices and, having sketches and ideas. And what if we use this fabric? And I wonder if we can call this guy. And it was a labor of love, and we were just fired up about it. And about a year into that process, we actually had our first prototype that we built and completed. And it was in all black, because we hadn't designed our camo pattern yet. And it was a trash bag. It was a glorified trash bag. I mean, it was boxy. It was ugly. But man, I was so proud of that thing. I was like, oh my gosh, we did it. It was
like, I get 50
really
of these at Home Depot for $30.
Yes. But man, I was
awesome,
proud of it.
That's super cool.
I think, that's the last of the stories, last of the kind of the product story as well. But the reason that we do this and the reason that we love it is exactly what your podcast is for: building those memories, just banking more and more stories that you have out in the wild with your friends, by yourself, and those memories just carry you all through the off season, and they're so fun to think back on and talk about. Man, it's just it's a really special thing that hunting does to people. I think that
I agree.
If people think it's just all about the killing or anything like that, it's so much more. And until you do it, and until you get out there and understand the respect that you actually have for the creature that you're hunting, it's hard to explain to people who've never experienced it themselves.
100%, Hunter. 100%. And what also is funny is, like, just thinking about your product, like the full body wader. I've been duck hunting. Well, I went twice, but the first time I didn't see anything, didn't do anything. I just sat there and it was cold. The second time I actually shot a duck. And that time I immediately thought, man, I wish my waders went higher up. So like your product makes a lot of sense, even from a guy who really has no experience. I have enough experience to know that like there's a problem with chest high waders or thigh high waders or whatever you're using out there. So it's super cool that you guys took that thing that probably 1,000 people have gone, not 1,000, 1,000,000 people have probably gone, this sucks, and fix the problem. So that's cool.
If we can just eliminate, one of those many, many variables that hunters have when they're planning their hunts, if we can eliminate one of those issues and allow you to spend more time focusing on the hunt and your time with your buddies and having a good time out there, like, then we've done our job.
There you go, man. Well, cool. Well, knowing that that's your last story, why don't we tell the people where they can find you if they want to learn more about Hunter Walton, and where they can find Canvasback and all the information that you want to share at this point. So
absolutely. Yeah. So, we have an Instagram and TikTok page that have that the handle is the same. It's just Canvasback Waterfowl, all one word. So you can go and take a look at those pages. You can see some videos and some images of them actually being utilized out in the wild, people putting them through hell. And then if you want to take a look at our website, it's also very simple. Just canvasbackwaterfowl.com. Right now we're running our pre-sale for this season. And last year we had just one colorway. It was a flat brown that was really versatile. It's actually what I utilize myself. But we're coming out with our own self-developed camo pattern, the Oak King camo pattern that we're really excited about. And so the waders will actually be in camo for this fall. If that's something that you're interested in, you can go check out our pre-sale that we're running on our website right now. We have a limited quantity. And so once they sell out, they're sold out for 2023. You got to wait till 24 to get your pair. But it's been a really cool journey to see, the dream of these waders and see them come to fruition, and then to be able to get feedback from people that I've never met before to talk about how much they love the waders. it's a really cool and fulfilling experience. So if you want to learn more, go check out our website, check out our social media, and feel free to email me with any questions that you might have. It's hunter@canvasbackwaterfowl.com. I field questions, calls, emails all the time, all day long, and I'll do my best to answer whatever question you might have.
There we go. All right, man. And so I'm going to put all of that information in the show notes. I might need you to send me the TikTok link, Hunter, because I don't have a TikTok. So I don't know how to get people over to you that way, but everything else I got, man. Everything else I got. So check out the show notes, email Hunter, check out the full body waders. It's an amazing concept. Even from a novice waterfowler like myself, I can see how it makes a lot of sense. And I'm surprised someone didn't do this a long time ago. But Hunter, man, this was fun. I'm glad we got some waterfowl stories. I've had some other waterfowl guys on, and they've always been like, waterfowl story is a waterfowl story, kind of like a Texas blind story is a Texas blind story. But you had some very unique and very fun stories. So thanks for sharing with us, man. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity to tell some of those stories, and it's always fun. Sitting here in March, about to be April, it's almost like torture to ourselves. I'm ready for September to get here. What the heck?
Torture for you, man. I just get to do this every week. Every week I'm talking to someone and reliving this stuff. So I just close my eyes and pretend I'm there. So
that's so
all right, man. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate you taking the time and reaching out. And as for the listeners, I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did. All right, guys, that's it. Another couple stories in the books. Again, I want to thank Hunter very much for coming on the podcast and proving everyone wrong that every waterfowl story is not created equal, and there's some pretty great ones out there that don't just involve someone being stupid. So thank you again, Hunter. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys go ahead and check out Canvasback Waterfowl Company. I'm going to put links to everything in the show notes, so you can go right there, click away, and check out what they're brewing, because they've got some pretty cool stuff. But beyond that, guys, thank you all very much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. I said it at the beginning. I'm going to say it again. Please share the podcast. Follow us on Instagram. Follow Hunter and Canvasback on Instagram, and help us grow both Hunter's organization and the podcast. And if you have any stories, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm regularly having just listeners on to tell us their crazy little stories. So that's it, guys. Thanks again. Thank you again to Hunter. And everybody, get out there and make some stories of your own.